The rain hammered against the windshield of my government-issued SUV as I sat in the parking lot of Fort Bragg's administrative building. October in North Carolina had always been unpredictable, but today's storm seemed to mirror the turmoil in my chest. I'd been staring at my phone for the past 10 minutes. The missed calls from my sister Sarah glaring back at me like accusations. Commander Alexandra Alex Morgan. That's what the brass called me. To my unit, I was just Commander or Ma'am. But to the family I'd left behind 15 years ago, I was the traitor who chose duty over blood. The phone buzzed again. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. Sarah, I answered, my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. Don't you dare hang up on me, Alexandra. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the rain's percussion. Grandpa's gone. The words hit me like shrapnel. I'd known this day would come. Samuel Morgan was 92 years old, but knowing didn't make it easier. My grandfather, the man who taught me to tie my boots, who showed me how to read a compass, who inspired me to serve my country, was gone. When? I managed to ask. This morning, in his sleep. Sarah's voice cracked slightly before hardening again. The funeral is Saturday at 2, St. Michael's Cemetery. I closed my eyes, calculating. Saturday was 3 days away. I could request emergency leave, make the drive to Pennsylvania in 8 hours if I pushed it. I'll be there, I said. No. The word was sharp as a blade. You won't. Sarah, Dad doesn't want you there. Neither does Uncle Robert. They made it very clear. My jaw clenched. That's not their decision to make, isn't it? Sarah's laugh was bitter. You made your choice 15 years ago, Alex. You chose the army over this family. You chose your precious career over being here when Mom was dying. You chose... I was deployed! The words exploded from me. I was in Afghanistan. Sarah, I couldn't just... You could have requested leave. Other soldiers do it, but not Commander Morgan. Not the perfect soldier who never breaks protocol. The accusation hung between us like a live wire. She wasn't wrong, not entirely. I could have pushed harder for emergency leave when Mom was diagnosed. But I'd been leading a critical operation, had soldiers depending on me. By the time I made it home, she was already gone. Grandpa would want me there, I said quietly. Grandpa's dead. Sarah's voice was cold. And the living don't want you. Stay away, Alex. For once in your life, respect this family's wishes. The line went dead. I sat in the silence, watching the rain streak down the windows. 15 years. 15 years since I'd chosen the army over attending my cousin's wedding, the event that had started the rift. 15 years of missed birthdays, holidays, family gatherings. I told myself it was duty, sacrifice, service to something greater. But sitting in that car, I wondered if I'd just been a coward, hiding behind my uniform to avoid the messy complications of family. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. I mean it, Alex. Don't come. I drove back to my quarters on autopilot, the storm following me like a shadow. The small apartment was military neat, everything in its place. Photos lined one shelf, not of family, but of my unit. The men and women who'd become my surrogate family. The ones who understood duty and sacrifice and the weight of command. But they couldn't fill the hole that had just been torn open. I poured myself a glass of bourbon, Grandpa's favorite brand, and sank into my desk chair. On the wall hung my medals and commendations. Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Meritorious Service Medal. Proof of my service, my sacrifice, my choices. Grandpa would have been proud of them. He'd served in Korea, came home with his own chest of medals and stories he'd only share after a few drinks. He understood duty, he understood sacrifice, but he also understood family. I opened my laptop and began typing the emergency leave request. 3 days. That's all I needed. 3 days to say goodbye to the man who'd shaped me into who I was. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Sarah's words echoed, "The living don't want you." I submitted the request anyway. The next morning, I stood in Colonel Davidson's office, my leave request in his hands. He was a good commander, fair and understanding, but his frown told me this wasn't going to be simple. "I'm sorry about your grandfather, Commander," he said, setting the paper down. "But we're in the middle of preparing for the joint exercise with the 82nd. I need you here." "Sir, it's 3 days. Major Martinez can handle the prep work." "Martinez is good, but he's not you." Davidson leaned back in his chair. "This exercise is critical. The Pentagon will be watching. I can't have my best commander absent during the lead-up. My grandfather raised me, sir. He's the reason I'm in this uniform." Davidson's expression softened slightly. "I understand that. I do. But the needs of the Army come first. I know. I'd said those words myself countless times to soldiers requesting leave for family events. Now they tasted like ash in my mouth. I can give you a day, after the exercise. Attend the memorial service, perhaps. The funeral is Saturday, sir. This Saturday. Then I'm sorry, Commander. Request denied. I stood at attention, every muscle rigid. Sir, with all due respect, dismissed. Commander. I saluted, turned on my heel, and left. In the hallway, I passed Major Martinez. He gave me a questioning look, but I shook my head and kept walking. That evening, I sat in my quarters, staring at the photo I kept in my desk drawer. It was from my commissioning ceremony. Grandpa stood beside me in his Korean War veteran's cap, his hand on my shoulder, pride radiating from his weathered face. Mom was on my other side, already thin from the cancer that would take her 2 years later. Sarah stood slightly apart, arms crossed, the distance between us already beginning to show. Dad had refused to come. No daughter of mine is going to be a soldier, he'd said. It's not natural. But Grandpa had come. Grandpa had understood. My secure phone rang. I recognized the number. Sergeant Major Williams, my senior NCO. Ma'am, his gravelly voice came through. Heard about your grandfather. I'm sorry. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Also heard your leave got denied. News traveled fast on base. The exercise takes priority. Bullshit, if you'll pardon my French, ma'am. You've never taken leave. Not once in the 3 years I've served under you. He was right. While other officers took their 30 days a year, I'd always found reasons to stay. Work to be done, soldiers to train, missions to plan, anything to avoid going home to a family that didn't want me there. It is what it is, Sergeant Major. Ma'am, he paused. Your grandfather served in Korea, didn't he? Yes, 2nd Infantry Division. My father served in the 2nd ID. Said they were tough as nails. Had to be, with what they faced over there. He never talked much about it, I said. Just bits and pieces. The cold, the mountains, losing friends. They understood sacrifice, that generation. Real sacrifice. Williams was quiet for a moment. You know what else they understood? That sometimes duty to family is just as important as duty to country. After we hung up, I poured another bourbon and stood at my window, watching soldiers cross the quad below. Young men and women who'd trusted me to lead them into combat and bring them home. I'd never failed them, but I'd failed my family. Again and again. The next day, Thursday, I threw myself into exercise preparations. If I couldn't be at the funeral, I'd at least ensure the exercise went perfectly. I reviewed troop movements, supply lines, communication protocols. I met with platoon leaders, supervised equipment checks, refined tactical plans, but every quiet moment brought thoughts of Grandpa, teaching me to shoot his old .22 rifle in the woods behind his house, showing me his medals and explaining what each one meant. The day I told him I was enlisting, the way his eyes had lit up even as Dad raged in the next room. You've got warrior blood, Alex, he'd said. Some are born to it. Just remember, the uniform is what you wear, not who you are. Don't let it become your hiding place. I'd thought I understood what he meant then, but now, 15 years later, I wasn't so sure. Thursday night, I called Sarah again. It went to voicemail. Sarah, it's me. I wanted to know about the arrangements. If there's anything I can do, any way I can help from here. I know you don't want me there, but Grandpa was... Please, call me back. She didn't. Friday morning brought controlled chaos as units began staging for the exercise. I was in my element, coordinating movements, solving problems, leading. This was what I knew. This was where I belonged. Or so I kept telling myself. At noon, my driver, Specialist Chen, found me in the Tactical Operations Center. Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. I followed him outside, expecting to see another officer with last-minute exercise issues. Instead, I found Sergeant Major Williams standing by my SUV, dressed in his Class A uniform. Behind him stood 11 other senior NCOs, all in dress uniforms. Sergeant Major, what's going on? Williams stepped forward, his face serious. Ma'am, we've been discussing the situation. Your grandfather's funeral. I told you, my leave was denied. Yes, ma'am, we know. He glanced at the others. We also know that Samuel Morgan served this country with honor in Korea, and we know that his granddaughter has served with equal honor in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sergeant Major, we've all cleared it with our commanders. We're taking personal leave. Tomorrow. He straightened. A soldier is being laid to rest. A brother in arms. It's our duty to ensure he receives the honors he deserves. I felt my throat tighten. The colonel will have your heads for this. Respectfully, ma'am, that's our problem, not yours. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stepped forward. You taught us that we don't leave soldiers behind. Well, Samuel Morgan was a soldier, and so are you. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, Williams interrupted. We're volunteering. 0600 hours tomorrow. We'll convoy to Pennsylvania, full dress uniforms. I looked at each of them. 12 senior NCOs, some of the most respected soldiers on base, willing to risk their careers for a funeral they had no obligation to attend. My family, I started, then stopped. How could I explain? We know about that too, ma'am, Williams said quietly. But here's the thing. We're your family too. And family doesn't let family face hard things alone. I had to turn away, blinking hard. When I'd composed myself, I faced them again. I don't have authorization to leave base. Williams smiled slightly. Well, ma'am, neither do we. Guess we'll all be AWOL together. This is insane. Maybe. He shrugged. But your grandfather deserves a proper send-off, and you deserve to be there. The rest, he waved a hand dismissively. The rest is just paperwork. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my dress uniform hanging on the closet door. In 12 hours, I'd be deliberately disobeying a direct order for the first time in my career. I'd be risking everything I'd worked for. But I thought about Grandpa, alone in some funeral home, waiting for a funeral his granddaughter couldn't attend because she'd chosen duty over family once again. I thought about Sarah, handling everything alone because I wasn't there. Again. I thought about 12 NCOs willing to put their careers on the line because they understood something I'd forgotten. Some duties transcend orders. At 05:30, I was up, pressing my dress uniform with military precision. Every ribbon aligned, every metal polished, every crease sharp enough to cut. If I was going to face my family after 15 years, if I was going to say goodbye to the man who'd made me who I was going to do it as the soldier he'd been proud of, even if it cost me everything. The convoy formed up in the pre-dawn darkness outside the base motor pool. 3 black SUVs, engines running quiet, headlights cutting through the morning mist. I stood by the lead vehicle, watching as 12 of Fort Bragg's finest NCOs performed final checks on their dress uniforms. Ma'am, Sergeant Major Williams approached, holding a folded flag. Thought you should carry this. It flew over Firebase Phoenix during our deployment in Afghanistan. Your grandfather would have appreciated it. I took the flag, the weight of it both physical and symbolic. Firebase Phoenix had been hell. 30 days of constant attacks, 3 soldiers lost. But we'd held. We'd done our duty. Thank you, Sergeant Major. Master Sergeant Rodriguez checked his watch. We should move out, ma'am. 8-hour drive, and we want to arrive with time to spare. I nodded, but my feet remained planted. Once we left base, there was no going back. Court-martial, loss of command, possibly discharge. 15 years of service potentially ending because I couldn't miss another family event. Second thoughts, Commander? Williams asked quietly. Always, I admitted, but not about this. I climbed into the lead vehicle. Williams took the driver's seat, while Staff Sergeant Hayes rode shotgun. The other vehicles filled quickly, engines revving in unison. Convoy, this is lead, Williams spoke into the radio. Rolling out. We passed through the main gate at 0615. The guard on duty, a young private, snapped to attention and saluted. He had no idea he was watching 13 careers potentially end. The first hour passed in silence. The North Carolina countryside slowly waking around us. Finally, Hayes broke the quiet. Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, what was your grandfather like? I considered the question. How do you sum up a man who shaped your entire life? He was tough, I said finally. Old school. The kind of man who believed in hard work, keeping your word, and standing up for what's right. He drove a truck for 40 years after Korea, never missed a day of work. But on weekends, I smiled slightly. On weekends, he was mine. Sounds like he raised you right, Williams said. He tried. I watched the trees blur past. After my parents divorced when I was 8, I spent most of my time at his house. He taught me everything. How to shoot, track, navigate by the stars. How to be tough when the world wanted to break you. Is that why you joined up? Hayes asked. Partly. He never pushed it, but I could see the pride when he talked about his service. The brotherhood. The purpose. I paused. I wanted that. Wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And your family didn't understand, Williams said. It wasn't a question. My father thought women didn't belong in uniform. My mother worried I'd get killed. Sarah. I shook my head. Sarah just saw it as abandonment. One more person leaving her behind. We stopped for fuel in Southern Virginia. While the others stretched their legs, I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Colonel Davidson, 3 from Sarah. I turned it off. Problems, ma'am? Master Sergeant Thompson asked, noticing my expression. The colonel knows we're gone. Thompson grinned. Of course he does. Probably knew before we hit the gate. Man has eyes everywhere. You're remarkably calm for someone facing court-martial. Ma'am, I've served 22 years, been shot at in 3 different countries, lost friends, lost family. He adjusted his ribbons. If I get busted for honoring a fellow soldier, so be it. There are worse ways to end a career. Back on the road, the conversations flowed easier. War stories, jokes, the dark humor that bonds soldiers. But as we crossed into Pennsylvania, I felt the weight settling back on my shoulders. Ma'am, Williams said quietly, we should talk about what happens when we arrive. They won't want me there. Respectfully, ma'am, that's not their call anymore. He glanced in the rearview mirror. You've got 12 senior NCOs in dress uniforms. We're not just dropping you off. We're your honor guard. They'll make a scene. Then we'll handle it. Professionally, but firmly. His jaw set. Your grandfather served this country. You've served this country. You have every right to be there. I wanted to believe him. But I knew my father. Knew Uncle Robert. They'd inherited all of Grandpa's stubbornness, but none of his understanding. We reached Harrisburg by 1300 hours. The funeral was at 1400. St. Michael's Cemetery was on the outskirts of town, an old place with weathered headstones dating back to the Civil War, fitting for a soldier. There, Hayes pointed. That must be it. Cars filled the small parking area. I recognized several. Dad's blue Ford, Uncle Robert's Chevy, Sarah's Honda. Extended family, Grandpa's friends from the VFW. A good turnout for a good man. We parked in formation at the back of the lot. Through the windshield, I could see the gathering near a green tent. The casket was already in place. American flag draped over it. Ready, ma'am? Williams asked. No. I straightened my uniform one last time. Let's go. We exited the vehicles in unison. 12 NCOs forming up without a word needed, their movements precise from years of practice. I took my place at the center, and we moved toward the gathering as one unit. The first person to notice us was my cousin Michael. His eyes widened, and he nudged his wife. A ripple of awareness spread through the crowd. Conversations died. Heads turned. I saw Sarah first. She stood near the casket, dressed in black, her face a mask of exhaustion and grief. Her expression shifted when she saw me. Surprise, anger, something else I couldn't read. Then my father stepped out from the crowd. David Morgan, 65 years old, still built like the construction worker he'd been for 30 years. His face was granite. Alexandra. The name was an accusation. You were told not to come. I stopped 10 feet from him, my escort halting with parade ground precision. Hello, Dad. Turn around. Leave. Now. No. His face reddened. I said, I heard you. My voice was steady, commander's voice. I'm here to bury my grandfather, the man who raised me, the soldier who served his country. I have that right. You have no rights here. Uncle Robert joined him, equally angry. You gave up those rights when you chose your precious army over this family. Behind me, I sensed my NCOs shifting slightly. Ready, but I held up a hand slightly, keeping them in check. I chose to serve my country, just like Grandpa did. Don't you dare compare yourself to him. Dad stepped forward. He came home. He put family first. He was there when we needed him. I was deployed. You're always deployed. Always gone. Always have something more important than us. His voice cracked. Your mother died asking for you. And where were you? Playing soldier in some desert. The words hit like physical blows. Around us, the other mourners watched in uncomfortable silence. I saw some of Grandpa's VFW buddies, recognized their conflicted expressions. They understood both sides of this war. Mr. Morgan, Sergeant Major Williams stepped forward. With respect, sir, your daughter was serving in Afghanistan when your wife passed. She was leading a combat operation that saved American lives. The same kind of operation your father might have led in Korea. Dad turned on him. I don't know who you are, soldier, but this is family business. Yes, sir, it is. Williams stood firm. And Commander Morgan is our family. We're here to ensure a Korean War veteran receives the honors he deserves, and that his granddaughter can pay her respects. Get out, all of you, or I'll call the police. David, a new voice, quiet but firm. Eleanor Morrison, Grandpa's neighbor for 30 years, stepped forward. Samuel wouldn't want this. Eleanor, stay out of this. No. The elderly woman's voice gained strength. I've held my tongue for 15 years, watched this family tear itself apart, but not today. Not at Samuel's funeral. She looked at me. He talked about you constantly, Alexandra. Every letter you sent from overseas, every medal you earned. He was so proud. He was disappointed, Dad interjected, heartbroken that she abandoned us. He was heartbroken that his son couldn't see past his own pride. Eleanor shot back. Samuel understood duty. He understood sacrifice. What he didn't understand was how his own family could turn their backs on one of their own for serving her country. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw Sarah wiping her eyes, saw cousins and aunts and uncles avoiding eye contact. The family divide laid bare for all to see. Then, from the crowd of VFW members, an old man stepped forward. He wore a Korean War veteran cap, his jacket heavy with pins and medals. "I knew Sam Morgan," he said, his voice carrying despite its frailty. "Served with him in the 2nd Infantry, Chosin Reservoir." He looked at my father. "Your dad saved my life. Carried me 2 miles through snow and Chinese fire when I took shrapnel to the leg." He turned to me, studying my uniform, noting the combat infantryman badge, the ribbons. "Afghanistan? 3 tours," I confirmed. "Iraq? 2. He nodded slowly. "Then you understand. Sometimes duty means missing things. Important things. It's not about choosing army over family. It's about serving something bigger than yourself so your family can be safe." He looked back at my father. Sam understood that. He'd want his granddaughter here. More VFW members moved forward, forming a loose line between us and the casket. Not threatening, just present. Old warriors recognizing one of their own. "This is ridiculous," Uncle Robert muttered, but the fight was leaving his voice. Sarah finally moved. She walked toward me, stopping just out of reach. "You came," she said quietly. "I couldn't miss it again." My voice nearly broke. "I couldn't." She studied my face, then looked at the 12 NCOs standing at attention behind me. "Who are they?" "My unit, my family." I met her eyes, the one that wanted me. Something shifted in her expression. Pain, understanding, maybe both. "Grandpa left letters," she said finally. "One for each of us." "Yours is in the car?" She paused. He wanted military honors. Dad refused, but we'll handle it," Williams said quietly, "if you'll allow us." Sarah looked at Dad, who stood rigid, jaw clenched. Then she nodded. "The pastor is waiting," she said. The crowd began moving toward the graveside. Dad and Uncle Robert stalked ahead, refusing to look at me, but others nodded as they passed. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Grandpa's friends. Acknowledgement, if not welcome. "Ma'am," Staff Sergeant Martinez whispered, "we should take positions." I nodded. My NCOs moved with practiced efficiency. 6 taking positions on either side of the casket. Williams and I stood at the head. The funeral director, clearly relieved someone was taking charge, nodded gratefully. The service was simple. The pastor spoke about Grandpa's life, his service, his work, his devotion to family. I kept my eyes on the flag-draped casket, remembering the man who'd shaped me, the lessons, the love, the understanding that some things were worth sacrificing for. When the pastor finished, Williams stepped forward. In a voice that had commanded soldiers in combat, he began. "Attention." 12 NCOs snapped to attention. I joined them. "Present arms." We saluted as one. The gathering fell silent, even Dad, watching soldiers honor a soldier. "Order arms." The salute dropped with precision. Then, from the back, Sergeant First Class Cooper began to play taps on his bugle. The mournful notes drifted across the cemetery, speaking of loss and honor and final farewells. I saw Dad's shoulders shake, saw Sarah crying openly, saw Grandpa's VFW brothers standing at attention, hands over hearts. When the last note faded, Williams and Rodriguez moved to the casket. With reverent precision, they lifted the flag and began the careful process of folding it. 13 folds, each with meaning. The flag that had covered a soldier's final journey home transformed into a tight triangle of stars. Williams took the folded flag and turned to me, but I shook my head slightly and nodded toward Sarah. Understanding, he pivoted and marched to where my sister stood. He extended the flag to her. "On behalf of a grateful nation and the United States Army, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your grandfather's honorable and faithful service." Sarah took the flag with shaking hands, clutching it to her chest. Her eyes found mine over Williams's shoulder. "Thank you," she mouthed. The ceremony concluded. Mourners began to disperse. Some stopped to shake my hand. Others, mainly Dad's generation, gave me wide berth. The divide remained, but something had shifted. "Alex?" Sarah approached as my NCOs gave us space. I'm sorry. For what I said. For telling you not to come. You were grieving. I was angry. Have been for 15 years. She looked at the grave. Grandpa left you more than a letter. There's a box. Things he wanted you to have. His medals. Some photos." She paused. "His journal from Korea. He never let anyone read it, but he wanted you to have it." My throat tightened. "Sarah." He understood, Alex, even when the rest of us couldn't. He understood why you had to go. Tears ran down her face. I wish it hadn't cost us so much. Me too. She hugged me then, sudden and fierce. 15 years of distance collapsed in that moment. When she pulled back, she pressed a key into my hand. His house. Dad wants to sell it, but take what you need. Take what he wanted you to have. I watched her walk back to the remaining family. Dad stood by his car, still refusing to look my way. But as I watched, Eleanor Morrison approached him, speaking quietly but firmly. His shoulders slumped. Ma'am, Williams appeared at my elbow. We should go. The colonel's been calling. The exercise. I know, but I didn't move. Not yet. Master Sergeant Rodriguez joined us. Hell of a thing, ma'am. Your grandfather would have been proud. Of an AWOL officer? Of a soldier who understood that some duties transcend regulations. He smiled slightly. Besides, we're not AWOL yet. Still got 2 hours before we're officially missing. Then we'd better move. But as we walked toward the vehicles, a voice called out, Alexandra. I turned. Dad stood 20 feet away, looking older than his years. Your mother, he said roughly. She understood too. At the end, she was proud of you. He struggled with the words. I couldn't see past my anger, but she understood. He turned and walked away before I could respond. We loaded into the vehicles in silence. As Williams started the engine, I looked back at the cemetery, at the fresh earth covering Grandpa's grave, at the family I'd lost and maybe, just maybe, begun to find again. Where to, ma'am? Williams asked. I checked my watch. If we pushed it, we could make it back to base before midnight. Face whatever consequences awaited. But first, one stop, I said, holding up the key Sarah had given me.